So you're thinking about relocating to the Pacific Northwest? This video is for you. We're rolling through an updated 2025 edition. We're gonna go through insights of the real estate market. What are people actually buying? And is it a buyer seller market? How are we saving people tens of thousands of dollars on their purchase? Additionally, lifestyle breakdowns of traffic, cost of living, politics, how things have shifted from the inner city to the metro areas. Should you live in the Vancouver side in Washington, inner city or suburbs? What are the differences? We're gonna go through it all today. My goal is to provide you local inside knowledge that you can't get on AI. So with no further ado, let's jump into it. I'll be honest, today I'm really struggling to do a video, and not because I don't love you or don't love doing the videos, but it's one of the cons of Portland. It's the weather. So though we have 4 to 5 months of incredible weather, a lot of times we get blanketed with the overcast gray. And there's something about it that just gives you, at least me, kind of the blues. Like it's as if you have an anchor on your motivation level. So I'm pushing through today, and I'm hoping that you can give me a little bit of a pass in regards to the energy. I'll try to keep it up, but one of the biggest cons is when we get the gray areas, get the momentum going, is when you get this overcast gray. Sometimes the motivation level's down, and if you have seasonal depression, it can play a really big factor into just your mental health. I gotta lock my car. And I would say, you know, we're recording today, first week of June. It's kind of a blip in the weather. Took a screen grab of the weather app. It's supposed to be like 75 to low 80s all the rest of the week, but we're getting this drizzle. So I think the most important times when it comes to weather here, living in the Pacific Northwest, guys, is your months of really like mid-November all the way to like early May, sometimes late May. You do get quite a bit of rain. And there's a lot of people relocating that we help from, say, Texas, Arizona, Southern California, that they say, I want that. I want the rain. I want the diversity of weather. And that might be your cup of tea. But if you are hypersensitive to the seasonal depression, I have a couple tips for you. Number one, plan your vacations. So what's great, and I'm gonna bucket this into a pro, is you can actually get a different climate change without jumping on a plane. So in Portland, you're centrally located to the Oregon coast, Central Oregon, which is actually high desert, as well as Mount Hood. So Portland itself is actually in the Willamette Valley, and will get more rain than just about anywhere else in Oregon. So I explain all of that because it is super easy for you to go drive. Bend, Oregon, my in-laws live out there. Beautiful place. It gets about 250 days of sunshine per year, maybe 300 if you ask a different person. So you can drive out there in a matter of 3.5 hours and get a complete climate change year round. So I highly recommend getting out and exploring different parts of Oregon, Washington, the Pacific Northwest to get that fill of sunshine, which is really, really nice. If you've got a little more of a budget, you can always dip down to Mexico, go to Hawaii, and Portland's an international airport, so it is really easy to get direct flights to Cabo, Cancun, Puerto Vallarta. Obviously, Hawaiian is simple, and Alaska actually just merged or bought, I don't know which one, merged or bought the Hawaiian Airlines. So it's really easy to get to nicer weather on an airplane or driving us there. So I'm throwing that in there as a con for Portland of 2025, mainly too because we've seen a lot of the change in weather with global warming. The seasons have really changed a lot. So being born and raised here, I was a junior golfer, and I would be able to know exactly every single year through juniors, mid, and high school essentially what weather would be like on any tournament because it was the same week. And now it's really a grab bag. I mean, we've seen the summers start a bit later, as you can see, it's June, first week of June, and we have drizzle rain, but we're also getting 75 to 80 degree weather. But rain is not uncommon in June. I would say now the real starting of summer, weather-wise, is later in June. And then it's really expanded all the way into Halloween, if not the first week of November. And that is something completely new. Usually when school starts in September, September is one of the best months for me that I like because it's really mid 70s and beautiful. But the summer, we're getting 75 degree weather all the way up to Halloween now, which is just unreal. Personally, I love playing golf September, October, early November here because everyone's back to school, the courses are clear, and this is the same with parks, trails, anything. It's not as busy and you have some of the best weather. So when you're planning out your visit trip, your scouting trip, and people are asking me, hey, when to come, I love September, October, November for weather-wise. Now, I always recommend to come out during the winter and see the landscape in a totally bare atmosphere, because it does look completely different the trailing 6 months of the year into late fall and winter. So we've kind of recapped a couple things already. Is the weather. I guess that's somewhat, I'm caught under one of these beautiful trees. So jumping back into it, we talked about the weather, the seasonal depression, with it being challenging for some people, but we've also butted that up with an antidote with travel and getting better weather locally with a drive or flying. So those are the two really big things to note and changes, really, is that weather. We do get a lot of people who are asked, like, hey, does it get super hot here lately? And I would say yes, you're seeing more frequently. We'll get a couple of days, maybe even a span of the week where we're hitting those 90 degree weather, sometimes above 100, but it usually won't last for more than a couple of days. And that's similar on the opposite end with snow. You would think that Portland would get more snow than it does. Really, once again, it goes back to the climate conditions within Willamette Valley. You got to think of like a half pipe, like snowboard or skateboard. The valley's in a half pipe, and it really keeps this humidity level at a certain point where we just don't get cold enough for consistent snow. Every couple years we'll have a big snowstorm, and how it happens here is the town really just shuts down. We're not necessarily equipped for, the Department of Transportation doesn't do a very good job of having proper equipment to field the snow. So it's really just best to stay home if you can, and most people do. I will give a tip of the hat to the Washington side. It's kind of a running joke of the locals that when the snow falls, Oregon's a mess, and then the Washington side really has it dialed. Like, there was KGW was showing the last snowstorm, the highway cameras between Vancouver and Portland was just a mess. Like, cars everywhere, pulled over, not knowing what to do. And then you go to the Vancouver side and it's like clean, crisp. It doesn't even look like there's been much change. So if you're someone that relies on transportation for your job, like say you are a truck driver or UPS, Amazon, we get a lot of those types of employees relocating here. Maybe Washington would be a better site so you can get in and out of your house during those storms. But anyways, I think that's super hilarious. But that's kind of been the weather changes I've seen a lot. Later starts to the summer, extended summers. We have seen some hotter points, and then still not a whole lot of change when it comes to the snow, and certainly not being equipped for it. Now, I do want to dive into kind of the political landscape of the Portland Metro. And, you know, this is a super big, complex conversation that I'm consistently unpacking with our clients on our initial call. And a lot of that is the political landscape and what it's like. Now, nationally, I would say backing up to the COVID eras and protests, Portland really did get hammered extremely hard on really how mismanaged the town was. But I think the most important thing off the jump is the context, right? So we really have to be on the same page when we're talking about it. Is it Portland, which is Multnomah County? I think that's number one. Most people that do relocate here, they're not really necessarily buying in Multnomah County, they're buying in Clackamas County, Washington County, or Clark County on the Washington side. So just because you're seeing certain positive or negative political views or opinions nationally on the news about Portland, it doesn't mean that you're going to experience that in the suburbs or the planned urban development, which is where most people do buy. Personally, I live in the inner cities. I've lived in Portland since my adult age, and then I lived in Westland, Lake Oswego area, so I have seen both of it. But you would have to just be honest that the inner city Portland landscape is a bit more liberal. And those are the individuals that are living in the inner city part. Sorry, I'm losing breath walking a little bit. But when it comes to the suburbs, I think you would be really surprised how many more conservative households there are. Particularly you look at Westland, Lake Oswego. This is just unbelievable. Never moved there. We're down to just the Blazer, enjoying a cool breeze, about 60 degrees out here. Well, I was diving into kind of conservative versus liberal, and I think I want to transition into my next bullet point of diversity. So what's fantastic, and I've had the benefit of traveling a lot of the world and experiencing different cities. Portland is super unique in the sense that you really, sorry, I'm watching my crosswalk here. You really get a lot of diversity just in the types of people, where they come from. It's very rare to find somebody that is actually born and raised in Oregon. I'm one of those unique people, and I've seen a lot of changes and development over the years. But it is great to have people from all over the country, all walks of life, and I think that really does butt up to who you are as a person, and also how you decide to raise your kids. That is one of the top things when you schedule a Zoom call with us and our team. We're constantly having these conversations, and that's something that comes up a lot. Hey, I want my kids to grow up in a multi-perspective town, diverse people and walks of life, and you have them here. You've got Christians, Catholics, Mormons, atheists even, all sorts of Asian, African American, Caucasian, Mexican. You've got all sorts of people here. And I think that really does make it a cool and unique town. And I think I would also say that you don't get this like, get out of Oregon type of vibe, because everyone's kind of a melting pot, or this town's kind of a melting pot in the sense that people from all over. So it's rare to find someone that has been here forever and can tell you to get out. That just doesn't exist, which I think is super, super cool and unique to the city. The overall vibe in this area, whether it's the Portland inner city, the metro, or the Clark County area, Vancouver, Washington, you do get a very casual kind of vibe when it comes to just conversing, dressing, and all that stuff. I always look a little more prim and proper. I like my little blazer, but I am very unique. Most of the time, your jeans, t-shirts, hoodies, your software engineer, your tech millionaire, or your coffee shop worker, they're all essentially going to be wearing the same kind of casual outfits, so to speak. So I think that's somewhat of a pro, where there's not heavy expectations for fashion, or really having things like dialed in when it comes to like name brands and stuff. To continue on the diversity subject, but kind of go into the real estate and activities and the lifestyle, is you're gonna get a lot of cool things to do. So a lot of people already know that this is wine country, this is beer country. So you've got a lot of microbrews and a lot of different things to do. I would say in the last year or so, those are definitely fading a little bit more than what we've been accustomed to. There's a couple different trends. One, inflation and cost of living, cost of owning a business has certainly increased, and you're seeing a lot of these microbrews as well as vineyards struggling to keep up. Also, Oregon taxes pretty heavily on alcohol, cigarettes, all the vice products, if you will. So it's making it harder with the cost of employment and running a business to keep those open. But still a lot of different things to do. Now, when it comes to events, you have art, you have plays, you have shows, you have a music scene. Man, with the restaurants, the different neighborhoods, the entertainment scene with music, plays, all that stuff. Portland gets all the major productions out here. There's an endless amount of things to do. So even if you do live in the suburbs and not in the inner cities, you could spend probably your first year every single weekend going to a new place to explore, whether it's North Mississippi, Belmont area, Hawthorne area, Multnomah Village, St. John's, North Portland, Washington Park, Cathedral Park, all these different areas. You could pick one each weekend and be parked there, 20 to 35 minute drive, depending on where you're coming from, and experience all these different shops, restaurants, food scenes, events, and really make it a part of your lifestyle. And that's what I see a lot of people doing. You know, they drive down, they take the kids around, explore for 2-3.5 hours, grab some lunch, enjoy the weather, and then head back home. So I do think there's a disconnect in the sense of like, oh, the politics and the way that the government's run is really going to impact living in the Portland metro, when really, unless you own property like myself, me and my wife live in Multnomah County, you're not going to be impacted by those things. So that is one of my pro-con updates, is it really is a unique place. And it is so special to have all these different options at your disposal. Like I said, I've been able to travel a lot around the world, and it's very unique to find a mid-sized city with this many amenities and things to do. Now, I do really want to dive into safety. This is a really big thing too. Another media-driven, oh, Portland's not safe. And I would say, you know, in the inner city parts where I live, it's true. Like, I wouldn't say I live in the safest area up in North Portland. We do have some car break-ins. We do have different activities, and from time to time you have gunshots and things like that. But, and I'm not trying to poo-poo that, sorry, there's a ton of construction right here. I'm not trying to set that aside and say it's not something to legitimately think about. Every city is gonna have crime and unfortunate events. Now, what doesn't happen is it really doesn't bleed over at all into the suburbs. Like, you start getting into deep Hillsborough, Tigard, Sherwood, Westland, Oregon City, different parts of the Vancouver, Camas, none of that you might see really even happens. Inner city living comes with inner city activity, and it is something that I do think is way blown out of proportion in regards to the media and what you find just searching. And a lot of that's context too. Sorry, we got another low branch. Dip under there. It depends where you're coming from. People from California laugh about what we think is high crime, or even to transition, high traffic. So I have seen in the last 20 years, traffic has sincerely gotten worse. And a lot of that, I'm gonna blame on Multnomah County. We've done a really bad job at being proactive on the infrastructure, the highway systems, even the maintenance. Like in Portland, you get a lot of complaints of the road maintenance and where are all these taxpayer dollars going to. Once again, you don't live in Multnomah County, ain't a thing for you, but the commuting can play a role. So knowing that I-5 South and 205 really does get congested during those main commuting hours, it's something to be mindful of. I always tell people, hey, if you're gonna be working, now if you're working remote, it doesn't matter because you work from home, but if you're gonna be working on the west side, try to live on the west side. If you're gonna be working on the east side, try to live on the east side. I would think, and this is a local pro tip, the worst commute that I could imagine, being a born and raised local here, is if I lived in, say, Camas, Washington, and worked out in Intel or Nike. That, to me, you bring in the biggest factors of traffic. You've got to cross the bridge from Washington to Oregon, and then you got to cross the bridge from the east side to the west side of the Portland Metro through Willamette River. And you're just leaving yourself susceptible to a lot of time in the car. And personally, I don't think that's my choice of lifestyle, but it is something to be mindful of. One of the downsides too, and on that note with Intel and Nike, getting over there from the east side is really challenging, not only because of the river and the bridges, but there's really only one through highway to get through there. That's Highway 26, of which is a 2-lane tunnel on both sides. And it's not gonna expand. It literally goes through a cliff. I never heard of any talk or seen any sort of information or news segment about trying to fix that. So you have a true standing bottleneck. So if you're looking at 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. and then even I'm gonna put it at 3 p.m. to 5 p.m., you're gonna be waiting. You're gonna be slow moving. However, it's really not that bad if you're coming from different places that have worse traffic, such as Southern California, even Dallas, Houston, big cities. I would take Portland over Seattle traffic any day of the year. So for the most part, you should anticipate a 40 to 60 minute drive during heavy commuting hours. Now, if you're able to work your schedule, which a lot of the people we talk to and relocate here are remote, or they have a flex schedule, they can pick and choose when and how they work on what schedules, you can time it and cut that time in half and get almost anywhere in 20 to 30 minutes. I was just talking to a client of ours that he bought up in Vancouver 2 years ago, met them just like this through YouTube. And the biggest thing for him is his yoga classes, which are located at the Lloyd Center area, the inner east side. And he's like, Addy, I want to buy another home. I want to convert this first property into a rental. I still want to be in the downtown Vancouver area. So he was saying he wanted to be 20 minutes. And I was like, hey, look, you know of all people, that depends on the commuting hours, how long that's going to take. It could take 20, 25 minutes if there's no traffic. During the heavy hours, it could be double that, if not triple if there's an accident. The tip, which he made a really good rebuttal and point to, was, well, Addy, I'm going southbound on I-5 to that location, not northbound during the commuting hours. And that is true. That is definitely a really important thing to know about the traffic here as it's gotten worse and worse and worse. The morning times, primarily that traffic flow is coming southbound on I-5. All the Washingtonians coming down to work in the Portland Metro, and then in the evening when the sun is setting, they're coming northbound. So if you do have to commute during those hours, you want to be going opposite flow. So ideally, in the evenings, you're going southbound, in the mornings, you're going northbound. Sometimes hard to make, but if you're working remote, flexible, or want to do something, that's how I'm timing my schedule. I also have the ability, we have an office over in the Tigard area, but I work out of my home 95% of the time, which is super convenient, and I love that change. Over the last 5 years, I used to have to go to an office every day, and it just sounds exhausting thinking about it. Anyways, I will try to do all of my running out and about between the hours really of 9:30 and 2 o'clock. I find that I keep that commute between 20 and 25 minutes on doing anything for the most part. Now, I'm gonna try to get to a conclusion here, but we've got some really important tips and kind of updates for 2025 and the pros and cons. A lot of that having to do with real estate, how we're helping people still get into homes, get a great deal, what type of market it kind of is. But we just finished the traffic part. I think that's important. That's the lifestyle. I think that is a part of your lifestyle, and it's important to know what that's gonna be like. So transitioning into what I really do love about Portland when it comes to actual real estate is the diversity of architecture in real estate. So there's just an eclectic mix of different homes, whether you are like, sorry, I'm walking through Porque No, one of the best Mexican restaurants in Portland. You gotta check that out, Porque No. It gets really, really busy and they don't take reservations. So my pro tip would be to go for lunch on a weekday, so you don't have to deal with the lines. Like Saturday, Sunday, just, you're gonna be waiting an hour for tacos. Worth it, but time's limited when you're coming to visit and relocating. So make sure you're giving us a call, because we're gonna go over your visiting tour. When we meet with you, we're gonna build out your agenda, help you with your hot spots, get you in the right neighborhoods based on what you want and don't want out of a home in a neighborhood. So you gotta give us a call. Me and my team are absolutely used to the scenario. We're the original Living in Portland channel. We've been doing videos before anyone else started. We know your scenario. We live and breathe helping people relocate here, so you gotta let us know. Getting back into the house piece of it though, Portland has so many, oh man, I'm hitting a lot of low branches, that time of the year. So many different architecture options. So, like one example, you have a super modern condo building right here, and then we'll have a 100-year-old Portland proper Hawthorne style front porch living. We'll have infill, split lots, multifamily, multi-generational. 80s build, if I were to have to buy in the suburbs, that's what I would buy, a 70s, 80s build. I love the quality of the build, the integrity of the homes, very low maintenance on that style of architecture. And then you have new construction. We're swamping in new construction out here. Particularly on the west side, you have so many different areas. Progress Ridge being one of them, out in Hillsborough, Beaverton, Tigard, so many new builds. And in the Portland area, you don't get the planned urban development. Sorry, I'm getting a little on the noisy commercial side. We're crossing. On the Portland side of things, you obviously aren't going to get suburb planned urban developments, but the city of Portland is starting to heavily provide incentives to builders. And why? Well, the state of Oregon, the city of Portland specifically, has target metrics to expand on the housing opportunity and try to tackle the inventory issue. So how they're doing that is they are working to pass bills to pretty much give exemptions to home buyers, reduction of property tax, and reduction of sales price. How do you do that? Well, you remove all the fees for the builders. So if there's $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 in taxes and fees for a builder, and we're gonna give that all back, waive it all for the builders and give it back to the home buyer. So we just had a client that got $40,000 price reduction right off the top for a brand new home. This is going to spur quite a bit of demand and hopefully provide more housing opportunities. Sorry, I saw a family coming. I don't want to weave through all that. So when it comes to the new construction, that's been about 60% of our home buyers relocating are buying a brand new home. So I'm getting a lot of people who are like, hey Eddie, how are people even affording payments right now? Well, what they're doing is they're taking advantage of the buyer market out here, specifically the builders, and we as a team are negotiating massive credits to apply to interest rate buy downs, whether temporary or permanent, having those credits used for closing costs, which can save $5, $10, $15, sometimes $20,000 of hard-earned cash out of the home buyer's pocket. And then on top of that, in some situations, we're able to also negotiate in appliances, window coverings, house updates. Now, new construction might not be your jam. We get that all the time. Addy, Listy, I don't even want to see a video if it's got an HOA, and that's fine. For the inner city new builds, there's very rarely a new build or an HOA. When there is, it's going to be because they've put 6 single family homes in this little community, and it might be, you know, $5, $10, $15 a month, and that's for landscaping. So you're paying someone to go out, take care of the garden, mow the grass, make sure everything's good, great, and proper, somebody to call for siding, roofing issues, storage issues. And sometimes there are single families that aren't in a little cluster pod and there's 0 HOA. But those incentives are really big. The truth and the con of it all, in my opinion, and I primarily help with the financing side, getting your mortgage, getting your loan, budgeting your sale, utilizing cash on hand, communicating terms and payments and all that stuff. Now, the reality of the situation is it can be extremely challenging to qualify for those incentives for the big like sales price reduction, those city incentives. And the reason why is there's an evaluation of your income and you can only make so much money to qualify for them. And if you make too much, you don't get the incentive, you don't qualify for it. So that's why you gotta meet with us and my team. I will be on that Zoom and we can talk about if you qualify for it, if there's a strategy to structure your income and your taxes to qualify for it. And it all comes down to planning, guys. The biggest thing is a lot of people don't give themselves enough time or runway to properly manage and plan their relocation. Our number one goal is the number one relocation team in the Pacific Northwest is one, have a great experience, provide amazing service, be here as a resource, have a relationship. That was like 4 different number ones. But overall, reduce the anxiety. A lot of the anxiety and stress from the move comes from uncertainty and lack of support, and this is what we thrive in. So once we have this initial call with you, we're gonna dive into that. The programs, what you qualify for, what the payment's gonna be, what type of strategy can we do with our agents to get you into contract, to get you into a home. Kind of tailspin there for a little bit, but I do love the diversity of homes. You know, like I've said, I've been a lot of different places around the world, and I think it's very unique, the different type of home styles that are out here. New builds, resales, 100, 150-year-old homes, modern condos, planned urban developments for families and kids. There's really anything you can think of, it's out here in the Pacific Northwest. Now I'm gonna leave you with the most important thing when it comes to understanding 2025 in the Portland market. So I have spoken quite a bit of it being a buyer's market, right? Now I wanna add a friendly asterisk to all that. It comes down to what you want in the specific area that works for you, because that micro market could be completely opposite. For example, I would say in the Tigard area, not as much competition as say Lake Oswego. Westland, not as much competition as the Lake Oswego area. So depending on what you want, the home that works for you and your family might be highly sought after. One example, we got a client that really wants to be in the southeast, Eastmoreland area. Super charming, cool, older homes. Now, the energy and the pace of the comparable sales in that area have been this. People are listing at $899 over there, and then essentially it goes for $1 million. We've seen this like 12, 14 weeks in a row in this particular zip code. Now, you might be sitting and looking on Redfin and on your app and be like, oh, I can get a home for $899, but it's really, you need the bandwidth for $1 million, and that's the demand and the pace of that particular area. Or you look at some of the suburbs in Vancouver, these homes might be sitting, they might not be going for that much. So a lot of it does come down to the specific area that you're wanting, like Westland, Lake Oswego, Southeast, Eastmoreland area, Camas, Washington. Continued demand creates a totally different buying market than even say where I live in North Portland. Like there's not a whole lot of inner city demand right now. You can get a heck of a deal on a North Portland home. There's inventory under 500K and there's inventory way over $1 million right on the overlook, fantastic views. So this is why we really have developed a great system doing this for almost a decade, guys. It's getting to know exactly your non-negotiables, what you need out of a home, and incorporating organic relationships and getting to know you so we can streamline, focus the lens, and give you feedback that is tailored to the house that you're likely going to offer on. So that's a full rundown of living in the Pacific Northwest 2025. Can't wait for our meeting with you. And if you want to check out more home tours and vlogs, make sure you hit that video up here in the corner.